to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, you are making me go through the phase of life, which is number 2, and I had enough. I don't want any more. I am going to leave the exam, and I'll go to the 3rd phase. Okay, you're welcome to the 3rd phase and the 4th phase, but you are going to come with a 0. If you are ready to face the consequences of a 0, here you go. So committing suicide is totally unacceptable. Now, assisting someone to die or commit suicide, again, is unacceptable. Now, there are 2 kinds here. It is called euthanasia. Euthanasia is basically to cause someone to die. Whether that person asks to die, or whether you really, as next of kin or somebody, you will say, I am going to really help because and they call it mercy killing. You know, that person suffered so much, that person has a terminal illness, that person will not survive. I am going to be the merciful one, and I will assist that person in dying. This is unacceptable, except in some conditions which I will outline. Now, why is it unacceptable? First of all, there are 2 kinds of euthanasia. There is passive euthanasia, where basically you withhold all medications that are necessary to treat or to deal with that illness. That person needs some kind of medication. You just don't give that person the medication, and that person will slowly die. That's passive euthanasia. Or that person is being kept alive by life support machine. You just unplug that machine, and then the person will die. And not too long ago, we really heard about Terry Schiavo out of Florida, where we knew that for 15 years she was kept in a vegetative state for 15 years until her ex-husband decided that he had enough and he wanted to pull the plug, and her parents and her husband, they went to court, and finally her husband won, and they unplugged that machine. And now the question is, should they have made that decision 15 years ago and not attach her to the life support machine to start with, or should they have done it after 15 years and made her for 12 days suffer as her body did not receive nourishment through the feeding tube? Now there's again another ethical question. We did not know how she felt. She could not say what she felt in those 12 days as her cells, the cells in her body, dried up and caused her to die. But should we have done it 15 years before? Now, many scholars went right, left, in the middle, but the one that I really, nobody is allowed to come in the middle, so please stand by the wall and lift up your hands. Like, it's okay. I love to embarrass you, I'm sorry. Now, Sheikh Yusuf Al-Qaradawi said something based on his qualification to give a fatwa, and he is qualified. He said that if a person is determined by a physician who is a capable Muslim physician, and here the word Muslim is added because a Muslim is the one who will really understand from the Islamic perspective how life is viewed in Islam. Now, if there is no Muslim who is as highly qualified to make that decision, a Muslim physician will seek the advice of that highly qualified physician, and together they have to confer, understand the pros and cons, and then make the decision together. So it is not exclusively then find the best qualified Muslim who may not be really actually qualified to make that decision and let him say yes or no, because at that time it may not be the right decision. Now, it is said by Sheikh Yusuf Al-Qaradawi that if it is determined that there's absolutely no chance, it is permissible, and this is where some of you will open their eyes and say, and I'll give you an example that I mentioned twice, and Abu Hassan can testify to this, because this example, his own brother, I was involved. Allah yarhamu Ahmed Habash, when he was actually bedridden for a long time, and I was asked to help his family make that decision. Shall we continue to connect to life support or not? And it's a very, very difficult thing. Now, Sheikh Yusuf Al-Qaradawi gave a very, very, beautiful example. He said that there are many things in life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave permission to certain individuals to make a decision. That decision could make the difference between sometimes life or death. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave those individuals that decision, knowing very well that if it's a matter of life and death, that we Muslims understand that the passage to death, by giving that individual the right to make that decision, is a matter of continuing the journey of life. It is not something that inconvenienced the victim, so to speak, quote unquote. Because we are all continuing our journey of life, whether we are alive or whether we pass through death. Give you the example. For example, the qadi, the judge, is given the right by the state, by the Islamic State, to make a decision that sometimes may be a decision that will actually put somebody to death. A death sentence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him that permission, gave the state that permission, gave the Amir that permission. Now, what if that decision is erroneous? That the Qadi made a mistake. That person should not die, but that person died. In the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's an atonement for the sins committed by, quote unquote, the victim. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to condemn the Qadi for making the wrong decision. Because the Qadi tried that is provided if the Qadi, if the judge did it with the right intention, with sincerity, and came to that conclusion that this person should be put to death. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala يَعْلَمُ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Allah knows, you do not know all the time, all the details, all the realities, all the facts. We don't. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave some individuals that right to make a decision. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a family gave the husband the decision to make the most difficult decisions, but that husband has to face the consequences. If he is doing it with sincerity, Allah will really bless that family for accepting the rule of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if that person is doing it to spite his family, to do wrong to his family, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will deal with him accordingly. And the same thing. Now, if the doctor finds that this person will not survive, and by prolonging his or her agony, it will not be in his or her best interest, that doctor is given the right, according to Sheikh Yusuf Al-Qaradawi, to decide, okay, you don't have to attach him to life support systems. And I agree with that, because he equated that to holding someone at the borders of a certain country. Imagine that you really want to travel to Port Huron, and then you are held at the borders for as long as they want. You're being held for no reason. The same thing. Holding someone by life support without really being alive as such, Sheikh Yusuf Al-Qaradawi said, is unacceptable, and you need to make that, not you, anybody. No, it has to be a person who knows medicine. So this is, and the doctor may make the wrong decision, because, in the case of Abu Hassan, as you know, that after the family said, okay, we know that the doctors, everybody said there's no way he will have 1 or 2 days. And I was asked to go and assist. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for a reason that He knows, made His son call at the time we were saying, okay, let's go and decide. He made his son call from Kuwait. And his son said, absolutely no way. And he spoke to me and said, please do not make that decision. I hold all of you responsible. So we said, okay, we're not going to do that. And Abu Hassan, for a year after that, stayed without life support. Without life support. It was the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Sheikh Yusuf Al-Qaradawi, according to his fatwa, said that a doctor could have actually made that decision, and we would have accepted that decision as being lawful or halal. Now, before I go to the wrap-up of the second phase of life, I would like to talk about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made as the lawful way to bring life, new life to existence. And He said, يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء. O humankind, be aware of your Lord, who created you from a single soul and created therein its mate, and from both made multiples of men and women. So we understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says, and made its mate, and from both of them made multiples of men and women, that the mate has to be from the opposite sex of the other person. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and made from both multiples of men and women. So it has to be a male and a female. Because a male and a male cannot produce multiples of men and women. It has to be. وَخَلَقَ مِنْهَا زَوْجَهَا. So some people say, خَلَقَ مِنْهَا زَوْجَهَا. Two people are in love. So they do not have to actually be of the same gender to be married to each other. This is what we are going, inshallah, after we finish here, to go and voice our disapproval of today. As we are going through this series, a matter of life and death, we may at this very time be contributors to a history that will not be in our favor later on. There's no point in sitting through hours of listening to theory and enjoying the perspective of Islam on life and death, while others are working very hard to change the very makeup of how human beings should associate with each other. Today is the test that after we finish, all of us go and say, no, brothers and sisters, now the fight is so close that it's only 10 votes will make the difference between the success of Bill C-38 or its defeat. If we do not translate theory into action, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will have this as a shahada, a witness against us. So I invite all of us, inshallah, once we finish Salat al-Dhuhr, that we go to Victoria Park. Until yesterday, for some reason, they've been calling me and saying, you know, we are looking forward. Last night at 8 o'clock, one of the organizers said, we are looking forward to have the majority from the Muslim community because we know how modesty is so important to your community that you will go and express. And you know what I understood, sisters, from this? They wanted to see the most visible display of Islam. So by having you at 10, and I'm not saying for the sisters who do not have the hijab that you are not going to go there, this is not a judgmental statement. But I'm saying that all of us should go and be there and show that Muslims really have the most at stake because, and as I said on Friday, they have asked me among 4 speakers to talk about marriage. They wanted to know the Islamic perspective because we have, inshallah, made headways in telling them what Islam stands for. And now there's a serious consideration, and a meeting will follow, that they used to talk about the Judeo-Christian tradition. Judeo-Christian tradition. Last night, I was discussing with one of them that, and he, said that we wanted to really sit together and talk about the Judeo-Christo-Islamic tradition, because Islam has much to offer to the Western tradition as Judaism and Christianity. So we have our chance, brothers and sisters. We have to say that homosexuality is not a natural phenomenon. They claim, look at this, all I would like to offer, I can talk about it a lot, but scientists themselves say that there is a common denominator among different members of the animal kingdom. Very good. Different members of the animal kingdom have 2 eyes. They have a heart. They eat, they excrete, they mate, they do things. Very good. Some scientists claim that homosexuality is determined in the genes. We have nothing to do about it. If this is the case, and the other argument still holding that we all are similar, then there has to be genes in the chromosomes of other members of the animal kingdom, which means that we should have animals that are homosexual. Tell me of one animal, one example from the animal kingdom of an animal that is homosexual. Give me one example. Not even the pig. There isn't a single one. Because, again, as we will talk about to wrap up, the theory of Darwin, evolution, if that gene of homosexuality evolved to really appear in the humans that are at the top of the evolution scale, we would expect that at least the apes that are the closest to us should have a similar gene. And that, not only this, that according to Darwin and Huxley and Lamarck and all the others that talked about evolution, according to them, the genes that survive are the fittest genes, which means that the gene that dictates homosexuality is a very fit gene, which means that homosexuality should protect the human race because it is at the height of evolution, which means that all of us should become homosexuals because this is the height of evolution. But we know that once all of us become homosexuals, it takes one generation for us to become extinct. And I'm pausing here because I want to make sure that we really absorb what it means. That imagine that all humans evolve to get that fit gene of homosexuality. All of us become homosexuals. It takes one generation and we are no more. We're gone. So how could it be fit? Survival of the fittest, as Darwin put it, means that we should become better human beings. How could it be? How could a gene dictate homosexuality and it's not even found in the closest link along the evolution chain? It's not there. Well, maybe they didn't find it. It is there. Okay, show me the outcome of that gene. No animals are homosexuals. Now, with this in mind, I would like to take a question that has been waiting, and Dr. Zafar must have said, I wasted time sending the email, but no, I have it for today, because today is the time which is logical for it. This is his question. Scientists found an incomplete human skeleton of a female in Ethiopia. Scientists have named the woman Lucy. Carbon dating, it's a method that shows how old a certain discovery is. Carbon dating estimates that bones of Lucy are about 2.5 million years old. 2.5 million years old. Munir, you told us that Adam is about, 7,000 years. 2.5 million. You're in big trouble. There are 2 sites within human cells that contain DNA, the nucleus, and the mitochondria. Now, you agree with me, Brother Zafar, that it's becoming a little bit complicated for the average. So I'm not going to really dwell on this. But the question is, now, if a human being like us, the same makeup, was 2.5 million years, how can we really now identify this with the creation of Adam? Isn't this an indication that evolution took place? But I'd like, before I go any further, to say that this was discovered to be a human being that is like us, unlike the so-called sapiens that, they have different Homo erectus, Homo, other names in text, categorizing creation, not creations to them, categorizing different species. They said that humans, as they are now, standing up like this, came after a series of evolutionary steps where we were actually like gorillas, with our hands longer and close to the ground, and then we started to, slowly get more erect until we are standing now on two. On two. Is this an indication of evolution? Now, I would like to tell you that I have gone back to 2 beautiful sources that talk about this. One of them is a book that I read actually a lot. It's called Kubra Al-Yaqiniyat Al-Kawniyah, the largest cosmic realities, by Dr. Muhammad Saeed Ramadan Al-Bouti. For those who really are good in Arabic, I advise you to acquire this book, because his Arabic style is not easy, but it is a book that is filled with beautiful knowledge. And the other one is a translation of the original book by Harun Yahya, and it is called The Evolution Deceit. And it is called Khadi'at al-Tatawwur by Harun Yahya. Now, we have to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us in Al-Quran Al-Kareem that in Surah Al-Infitar, كلا إن الإنسان ليطغى. No, in Surah Al-Infitar, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, يا أيها الإنسان ما غرك بربك الكريم الذي خلقك فسواك فعدلك في أي صورة ما شاء ركبك. So Allah subhanahu